Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com On3. Now with On3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football, Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there. Sign up today.
Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world,
pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Oh. Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Thursday. It's a beautiful Thursday here in Indiana, at least central Indiana, and hopefully it is wherever you are. We appreciate you. Joined now by Steve Wiltfong, one of the most connected people in all of college football. He's the vice president of football recruiting and the transfer portal for On3. How are you, sir?
Jim, doing well, man. I caught the end of your interview there with the legendary Bob Kravitz. And just made me think IU should have made those basketball players play the NIT. I mean, they're on payroll. They're on salary. They underachieved. They didn't do what they were supposed to do, but you could have sold some parking and some hot dogs. The Hoosiers would have got a home game, and they should have had to run up and down the floor for their pay. They probably would have sat out, knowing everything I know about that group that didn't make the tournament, but they should have been forced to play.
And if you might notice, Steve is a little in tune to all things going on, especially with Indiana. He's an Indianapolis resident, and makes it nice for us. Are you from Indy?
No, I'm from South Bend. I live in Zionsville now, Indianapolis area.
So who's your native regardless?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And excited to be in the Indianapolis area, the best city in the country. Bang for your buck.
It's
best
the sports capital of the
capital,
world. There's
exactly
no doubt
right
about that.
Yeah. And we're ripping and roaring with the Pacers right now. I got my smoothie in my Pacers cup here.
Got the jerseys hanging over here, baby.
Yeah.
Jerseys hanging over here.
Bring on Cleveland, Jim.
Oh, just jumping right ahead to the Cavs. That'll be a tough matchup, but they seem like they're feeling pretty good right now. Tyrese Halliburton, they're all the chippiness going on with Damian Lillard and all of that. But hey, if you got to have that.
Listen, no question, and I like the way that Tyrese Halliburton's responding to Lillard. He's not getting punked out. He's ready to roll. In the
and that's probably
right
different than from a year ago.
Look, I wish it wasn't 9:20 in the morning right now, and we didn't have to work all day, because I'd go pour myself a Hard Truth rye right now, man, and we'd kick back and we'd talk Pacers basketball. We got the Colts draft tonight. Hopefully they can land a difference maker at tight end, or even another pass rusher to get this team right and make the playoffs and go on a run there. And then certainly Indiana football is in an exciting stage with that program right now, which is why I think you brought me on.
Yeah, and you just gave me a great idea, which I thought of doing this anyway, but we'll have to set up a couple of live shows from Hard Truth Distilling Company there in Nashville, Indiana, which is a beautiful facility. You hear the commercials all the time, people. 325 acres, just a gorgeous, gorgeous setting. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, what the hell are you waiting on? It's incredible. It's just a great place to go hang out with food. I sit outside if you want. They've got an amphitheater, music. I mean, I know that they have their own commercials, but it's a legitimately great place, and their stuff is legitimately great. I mean, we've got all these other well-known bourbons in the world, but they've just jumped into an elite status. It's like being a nobody basketball program forever. Or let me repeat that. It's like being a nobody football program forever. Well, like Indiana, and then making the college football playoffs. What the hell? That's how crazy this world is, and jumping from bourbon to football. But yeah, the Indiana Hoosiers looking to repeat that and shock the world a lot last year. Hell, it shocked us, Steve.
Yeah, I win. Google me, Coach Signetti, at one of his first press conferences, and he came in and did just that, changed the entire culture of the football program and the belief that those guys had in their locker room, brought in a terrific coaching staff around them to get the best out of the guys, and they competed every Saturday. They had a game plan that gave them a chance to execute at a high level, and then the kids went out there and performed, and I think Curt Cignetti has a history over the course of his career getting the best out of his rosters, and I got a chance to spend some time with him before the season last year, and after we turned off the tape recorders, I don't think he'll care anymore, but he goes, off the record, we're going to be pretty good. I just said it just so chill.
Oh, trust me. I had him at the Big Ten Media Days last year, and I'd already looked at the schedule, and I'm like, they're going to start 6-0, as crazy as it sounded. And I brought that up to him, and he immediately just poo-pooed that off. Later on in the year, I heard him say, I looked at the schedule, and I knew we were going to start off, blah, blah. I'm like, I asked you that, and you act like I was nuts. But
he wasn't going to talk his shit on. He wasn't going to talk on the record that early. Certainly he said that they were going to be good, but he wasn't going to put it out there just like that and say we're going to be 6-0 right off the bat. It puts a lot of pressure on your football team, and it makes it seem like you're really looking ahead when you're obviously trying to go week to week with your football team and tackle each chapter, all 12 games, one at a time. But talking to him before the game, at that time, Indiana was recruiting Julian Lewis, the highly ranked quarterback out of the Peach State. And I just asked him, I said, what would make Indiana attractive quarterback position for a recruit at a high level? And he's like, look, my last 3 quarterbacks have been the conference player of the year, and they all 3 had different skill sets. We build around those guys and what they can do and put them in position to succeed at a high level. And then you see that happen again with Curtis Rourke, able to come in. And what a tough guy, man. Was just a hard-nosed football player.
ACL, torn ACL, man.
No, absolutely. And just how mature he is and a great leader. And he came in and battled, even battled in that Notre Dame game on that stage. I was at Notre Dame Stadium that night. I'd never heard it so loud and electric. And I've been to some big games in that stadium. And in Indiana, they got beat, but they didn't cower, and they played hard all 60 minutes. And they're looking to build on that this year. And obviously they lost some key pieces, but they're bringing in some key pieces. But the one thing we know is that this coaching staff is going to get the best out of their guys, and they're going to be put in position to win and play well Saturday in and Saturday out.
Yeah, last year, obviously, the defense, you'd have to, as great as the offense was, defense was a top 10 defense, legit year all season long. Brian Haynes did a tremendous job, and they did it again with a lot of the guys that they brought in from mid-level schools, a lot from JMU and whatnot. And right now, they're anchored, I talk about this a lot, with 3 All-Americans, but they've got one on the line in Mikael Kamara. You've got Aiden Fisher at linebacker, D'Angelo Pons in the backfield. That's a pretty good defensive anchor that most teams don't have, and they're building around that. They've added a couple of guys this week, a former teammate of C.J. West from Kent State. CJ's name may get called tonight in the NFL draft. They added yet another guy from Maryland, a linebacker who I can't remember if he's the guy that's actually going to play down on the line, which I believe he might be.
Kellen Wyatt.
Which I'm like, boy, that's got to be exciting. And so they're adding the right pieces that they need to add. And then on the offensive side, Fernando Mendoza there's not going to be a bit of drop off on the offensive side for Indiana, in my opinion.
No. Indiana, they've obviously built this roster up from from the point of attack on and being good up the middle, in the middle of your defense and middle linebacker and at the safety position as well. And then, Mendoza was a big get for them out of the transfer portal, to go out and land a guy that they coveted and beat the teams that they beat to land him, a guy that's capable of running their offense at a high level and getting the ball to their playmakers and making things happen.
I think we all would be talking a little crazy after.
Well, it depends on how quickly I take them.
That's true.
Am I nursing them? Am I hitting them quickly? But those hard truth, from the bourbon to the rye to the coconut rum, it's all good. And
we'll have to get you set up with something with that as well.
But Coach Haynes, look, Indiana's very fortunate to have Coach Haynes back this year. He was in the mix to be the Ball State.
He's a wanted man.
He was in the mix to be Ball State's head football coach. And certainly if Indiana puts out another good year here, you'll have those SEC programs and some more high-profile brands coming after him. But he's got great chemistry with Coach Signetti, obviously doing a fantastic job in Indiana. And has quickly become one of the top assistant coaches in the country. And in such a team-driven sport, you're only as good as your staff. And Indiana has a fantastic coaching staff put together on that side of the ball, rising coaches like Pat Kuntz, but Coach Haynes is certainly a stud in this industry.
Oh, absolutely. And that I talk about the ability for Indiana to hold on to him. First of all, how gigantic that was. They've had great coaches in the last several years. They just, as much as Tom Allen's as good a human as you're going to meet, but probably was not the right guy to be a head coach in the Big Ten. But he did have some great assistants around him. He had Kalen DeBoer as offensive coordinator. At the same time, he had his DC that's now down with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Kane Womack, Nick Sheridan, the strength and conditioning coach at Alabama.
Mike Hart. He had some great coaches. And look,
LSU's defensive line coach, Kevin Peoples, was on that staff.
Indiana is a tough place to win consistently. So we're going to see what Coach Signetti and company can do in year 2 and on. And obviously there's plenty of reason to be confident when you just look at what he's done historically as a head football coach, but we cannot sleep on the fact that Tom Allen had some good years. All right. Like by Indiana's standard for sure.
Oh.
And so it was unfortunate that it didn't work out long-term because as you said, Tom Allen is as good a guy as there is. And he is a perfect fit for Clemson and their culture and kind of the way he's built as a man and human. He fits in well at Clemson, did a really good job at Penn State as their defensive coordinator, coming in there and filling the void for Manny Diaz, who ended up becoming the head coach at Duke. But Curt Cignetti, there's just a different kind of edge to him and how competitive he is and the intensity he brings and the way he holds people accountable across the board, his staff, his players, but he's very fair. And so the players understand what is expected of them every day. And they've come together as a football team, and he got the best out of them last year. And with that, a lot of excitement in spring ball. Now, how do they handle some success? It's how do you now Indiana is a football team that is not viewed as a layup. It's a big game when they come into your house or when you go to Indiana. It's a chance now to play a good football team on the road or beat a good football team in your house as you're trying to build a college football resume yourself. So there's going to be a different dynamic for Indiana football this year. It's a new stage for Curt Cignetti too in his career as a head football coach. But I'm still excited about Indiana, bullish on this football team. Love what they did in the portal, going in and landing a guy like Pat Coogan from Notre Dame. Obviously, Mendoza was the huge pickup at quarterback, getting some guys around the line of scrimmage on defense. They have a really good secondary coming back. So again, a lot of reason for optimism, but the Big Ten is loaded. And there's a lot of good football coaches in that league. And I was kind of talking to Andy Staples and some of the other guys in our company about the Big Ten, and they've won the last 2 national championships. The high tides are raising the ships. And so Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, those programs are really getting tested week to week, because when you look across the board and you see guys like Curt Cignetti in this league and Kirk Ferentz in this league and PJ Fleck in this league and Brett Bielema, those are really good football coaches that have been very successful over the course of their career, that are maximizing their teams year in and year out. So it's an absolute battle. And I think Purdue hired a good one in Barry Odom too, a guy that's going to come in and bring an edge to a program that kind of lost it in between Brom and now Coach Odom. Now, Coach Brom just wasn't in the recruiting, but you deal him, he'll take the cards he's got and get the most out of them. He's a hell of a football coach. I think at Indiana, you're seeing a nice combination of them going into the portal and getting guys that can be a difference maker. They had some really good wins from the high school circuit. They're off and running in 2026 on the trail from the high school circuit. They just landed a top 100 player, Henry Ollinger, out of Ohio, one of the best two-way players in the Midwest. He is a guy that we have ranked in the top 100 as a running back, that it's coming to Indiana to play linebacker. Coach Haynes and company way out in front of other programs and offering and targeting him and getting him to campus early. And in the end, that trust, the direction of the program, he's in for Indiana. He's got a skill set that kind of reminds you of Patrick Queen, who was a star linebacker at LSU, national champion, that rushed for like 2,000 yards in high school as a tailback, then played linebacker at LSU, and then heard his name called early, already having a good NFL career. That's kind of who I comp Henry Ollinger to, who stars in all three facets of the game on the prep level. Huge recruiting win for Indiana. They're lining up for some big news here later this week. I love where they stand with another great two-way player in the state, Casimir Hicks from Indianapolis, Decatur Central. He's a guy that probably plays corner on the next level, but he is one of the best wide receivers in the state, dynamic in the return game. Another guy that Indiana got on early, got him to campus a bunch. He was at game day for the win over Nebraska, came back from some other big home games, has spent some time up there in junior days, sees how Indiana's developing their players. He's got some really good opportunities elsewhere, but I think Indiana's going to land Casimir Hicks when it's all said and done out of Decatur Central. So those guys, they're not just a linebacker, they're not just a corner, they're football players. And that's what Curt Cignetti and company are looking for. That's what they had with Curtis Rourke, their quarterback last year. He wasn't just a quarterback, he was a football player. The way Mendoza plays the game, he's a football player. And the guys they're getting on the trail, they can do a lot of things to help your team win. Those are really good glue guys, really good culture guys. And then again, without being said, you got to be a good football player. They're not recruiting you anyway.
Yeah, and Indiana is doing this with really good players. Just they're not elite names per se, like the other teams are pulling in. And you mentioned recruiting. Indiana had fallen; they were behind Purdue in recruiting their own state in Indiana. If you were an elite player in Indiana, you're probably going to be looking at either Michigan or Ohio State or someone else that may poach you. But then in-state. Or Notre Dame, but in-state, Purdue has had the upper hand on Indiana because they just have had more tradition in football, but that has kind of changed, and now we're seeing Indiana really getting a hold on the in-state recruiting, which is important, even though the transfer portal is gigantic nowadays. You still want to maintain in the sport of football a solid recruiting base. Hopefully you can keep and develop those guys and keep them in on the roster, but that's a whole different story. But that's another change that has happened.
Well, students that attend IU would go out and tailgate, obviously, and then go back to their place or their fraternity or whatever and watch their favorite team from their hometown play, whether it was Notre Dame, Ohio State, or whatever. But now those students starting to get some passion for IU football. They're sell out some games, student sections ripping and roaring. Indiana football is going to come into this season with the best support that they've had for a season opener in my life. I'm 42 years old. I can't think of a time where they're going to have a full Memorial Stadium, I would imagine, for the opener with students that are going to come in there and be raucous and ready to go. And so it's an exciting time, but it's always going to be a developmental program, Jim. It's not like Indiana. Henry Ollinger, Casimir Hicks, those guys are 4 stars, top 300, top 100 recruits. Indiana, I think we're going to see them win a handful of them each cycle. moving forward, but it's ultimately still going to be a developmental program. Finding guys, there's so many good football players out there. Finding guys with the right makeup, finding guys with the right upside, guys with length, guys with speed, guys with the right culture fit, guys that fit what you're doing schematically, and then getting the best out of them. We're not going to just turn around and see Indiana recruiting top 20 recruiting classes. It just is what it is. But that doesn't mean they can't be a top 20 football team year in and year out, because they have a great coaching staff. They recruit the right guys. They get the best out of them. They put them in the best positions to succeed. They got great strength and conditioning. There's great support from the administration, which Indiana's getting. They're pouring into the program. And again, the people within the program are lifting each other up, and there's a level of pride and competition. That's where Indiana football is trending right now. And I think if you look at the models that they could potentially be, I mean, certainly you point to places like Iowa and say, well, why can't we consistently be a football team like Iowa and win at that caliber and be in some Big Ten conversations every other year or so. Then you look at what Michigan State and Mark D'Antonio did during their stretch. It's not like they were pulling in top 10 recruiting classes, but he went on a stretch where they won 11 games 5 years in a row because, again, they recruited the right kind of guys with the right chips on their shoulder. These were guys that felt like they were overlooked by the Ohio States and Michigans of the world, and they wanted to come in there and prove themselves and kick Ohio State and Michigan's ass, you know? And so Indiana finding the guys with the chip on their shoulder, the guys that can run, the guys that have length, the guys that are physical at the point of attack, the guys that are still developing but have huge upsides. And then you just get them into your program, and your strength and conditioning is elite. Your schematics are elite. And the expectations you put on these kids, they're able to meet them because they understand what you're asking of them day in and day out.
You mentioned the Big Ten is going to be tough this year. Who's going to be at the top? Is it Ohio State again, as one would expect coming off of the national championship year, especially one that they weren't a national championship-looking team through some of it, but boy, did they rise up at the end and do the job they needed to do. Obviously, Oregon, Penn State names, but Iowa and Illinois, two teams that are on Indiana's schedule. Both teams that Illinois was a team that would have been talked about a lot more for the CFP last year had it not been for Indiana. They stole Illinois' thunder, I think. But Iowa picked up a great quarterback. Other than that, I'm not sure who it would be, but those are some top teams to start with right there.
Well, certainly you got to look at Penn State, too. They return their quarterback, Drew Aller, have a lot of weapons on offense, could still land a difference maker at wide receiver in the transfer portal. And there hasn't been a season where James Franklin hasn't had a football team where the defense isn't one of the top 10 defenses in the country and not one of the most disruptive defenses in the country. They get after you. They make a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. Penn State's going to be there at the end. History says that they will be. So Penn State's a program that I'm keen on. Obviously, Ohio State, they're always talented. They got to replace, they hired some high-profile coordinators. They promoted Brian Hartline. They bring in Patricia, but you're still replacing Chip Kelly. And then my man who went to Penn State's new defensive coordinator, why am I drawing a blank, was at Oklahoma State. But you guys know who I'm talking about. Michigan, they played really well at the end of the season, beat Ohio State. And I think that their program is definitely on the uptick as they kind of reload over there. Illinois won 10 games for the first time in over 10 years. There's a lot of excitement around their program. Altmaier staying with the Illini. They got their quarterback position figured out. So I think the Illini are going to be really good as well. So those are kind of the programs that I look at as the top of the conference. And then we'll go from there. But Indiana will certainly be in the mix, Jim.
It's going to be fun. We've got a long ways off, but Big Ten Media Days in July in Las Vegas. Looking forward to having you on at your convenience, because there will be plenty to talk about all summer now because of the portal, because of the ever-changing rosters. We can think of that, we know who's going to be what, but we really don't yet. And but plenty to get to. And man, appreciate you so much. The Hoosier.com is grateful to be a part of the On3 network. I know that is a great marriage between those two, man. Alec Lasley and those guys doing a tremendous job and providing great coverage along with the resources from On3.
Yep, absolutely, Jim. You guys take care. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to a live show at Hard Truth at some point down the road. That's a fall break destination for the Wiltfongs because I can't really take it off. So I don't mind going an hour down the road to Nashville, Indiana, working from a cabin, hitting Hard Truth, hitting their little downtown area. It's a great little town with a tremendous restaurant there with all the acreage and activity for young families. But thanks again, Jim, for having me on. You guys take care. We'll see y'all later.
Steve Wiltfong from On3 joining us on the program. Up next, we have got the great Curt Cignetti as the Pacers roll on. Hello, everyone. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, as always, for listening to our content. But for more in-depth coverage on the Indiana Hoosiers football, basketball, and recruiting news, go to thehoosier.com On3. Now with On3 and great national writers like Ari Wasserman, Andy Staples, and Steve Wiltfong for football, Pete Nakos, J.B. Shaw, and Joe Tipton's constantly breaking stories on the basketball side. And the local coverage from Alec Lasley, Kyler Staley, and Zach Browning. You can catch something new every day at thehoosier.com. Go there, sign up today.